At 2:07 a.m., the floor still glistened under the dim lobby lights, her mop moving in slow, tired circles. The world was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like no one's watching. But he was. From the shadows of the mezzanine, behind thick glass tinted just enough to keep secrets, he watched her for the 5th night in a row. His hand rested on the edge of the railing, motionless, except for the way his thumb gently traced the edge of a worn silver coin. A coin that had belonged to someone he once lost and never truly found again. She moved like someone who had learned to live inside silence. No music in her ears, no phone nearby, just the steady rhythm of her breath and the soft swish of water on tile. Every night she came in, tucked her hair behind her ear, and cleaned as if the floor held answers to a question she was too tired to ask. Sometimes, she paused and stared at her reflection in the elevator doors. Not out of vanity, but like she was trying to remember who she used to be. There was a moment, just last night, when she glanced up at the mezzanine, as if she felt something. Not saw, felt. Her eyes lingered, searching through the glass. A gaze that lasted only seconds, but said more than words ever could. Not fear, not curiosity, something deeper, like pain dressed in calm. The mop bucket, rusted at the wheels, with a small sticker of a faded cartoon cat on its side, clanked every time she dragged it forward. That cat, smiling through the peeling edges, had been stuck there for years. She never peeled it off. That sticker, that'll come back. You'll see. He didn't know her name yet. Didn't know why she always hummed the same melody when she reached the East Wing, the one with the old piano nobody touched anymore. But that song, soft and almost childlike, stayed with him. Not because it was beautiful, because it was broken. Like a lullaby someone kept singing to remember what it felt like to be loved. No one knew he was in town. The tabloids said he was somewhere in Switzerland skiing or hiding from another scandal. But he was here, in his own building, invisible, watching a woman who didn't know he existed. A woman who had no idea she'd already changed something in him. And she'd done it with nothing but silence and a mop. Funny how the people we never expect to meet are sometimes the ones who hold pieces of our story we didn't even know were missing. You ever look at someone and wonder what it would be like if your pain met theirs and both finally made sense? Keep watching. The story's only beginning. Earlier that week, on a Tuesday that smelled like old paper and rain, she'd found the coin. It had been left on the edge of a windowsill in the break room, worn, heavy, and oddly warm. She turned it over in her hand a few times, noticing the faint outline of a lion's head etched into one side. The kind of coin that didn't belong to vending machines or pocket change. She meant to turn it in, but instead, she tucked it deep into her coat pocket, not for greed, something else. Something she didn't quite understand. A strange comfort, like holding a memory that wasn't hers. He dropped it by accident, though he would never admit it. That coin had lived in his palm during meetings, during long drives, during every silent hour he didn't want to face alone. It had been a gift from his brother. The same brother who'd said, "This is for luck, but not the good kind, the kind that makes you survive when you shouldn't." He'd laughed then. That was years ago, before the fire. Before the silence between them swallowed everything. Now, every time she walked past that same window where she'd found it, she reached into her coat pocket, just to feel the weight of it. That coin didn't sparkle. It didn't shine. But it felt like truth. Heavy. Real. The way some things are when life's taken more than it's given. She wasn't just mopping floors. Not really. She was sweeping up echoes. Old conversations trapped in corners. Silent arguments held between the walls. And every night, as the building emptied and the city outside blurred into a blur of red brake lights and honking cabs, she stayed behind. Not for overtime. For space. To breathe. To remember without breaking apart. There was a night when she had cried in the stairwell. Quiet, controlled. Just one tear, but enough to change the air. She pressed her back against the cold concrete, gripping the handle of the mop like it could hold her together. The camera in the stairwell caught it. He watched it the next morning. Paused it. Rewound it. Played it again. Not out of curiosity. Out of guilt? Because he knew that kind of quiet heartbreak. The kind that shows up when no one's looking and doesn't need an audience to be real. She used to be someone else. A girl who danced, taught ballet, tied pink ribbons into braids. Then something happened, something that took movement away from her. A limp in her left leg she always tried to hide. A limp that only showed when she thought no one was watching. The building was filled with polished floors and high ceilings, but none of it ever saw her. Until now, he watched her in silence. Not like a voyeur, more like a man looking through a window at a life he didn't know how to reach. And in that distance between them, something fragile started to stir. Not romance, not yet, just noticing. The way you notice someone who mirrors something inside you that you thought no one else could see. Maybe that's why people stay up late. Maybe it's not insomnia. Maybe it's grief looking for company. And maybe, just maybe, the loneliest souls are always closer than we think. The rain had started again. Not the gentle kind that soothes windows and puts you to sleep. This rain was restless. Angry. It beat down on the glass of the top floor office like it was trying to get inside, like it had something to say. He stood with his hands in his pockets, staring out at the city. From up here, everything looked small. The streets. The people. Even his problems. But when he blinked, her face flashed again behind his eyelids, the look she wore when she thought no one saw her. That invisible grief. It pulled at something inside him he didn't know was still alive. He had a meeting in an hour. Boardroom full of men who only smiled with their teeth. $1 billion contract that would put his name back in the headlines for something other than the scandal. But he couldn't focus. Not when his mind kept drifting to the night she slipped in the East Wing. The cameras caught it. A soft stumble, a flash of pain, and the way she sat on the floor for a full minute before getting up like it didn't matter. Like she didn't matter. It wasn't supposed to matter to him. That was the rule, keep the distance. Wealth builds walls for a reason. But lately, he'd started wondering if maybe the walls were just cages in disguise. Maybe the price of staying untouchable was forgetting how to feel anything that didn't come with a price tag. She had her own storm to walk through. Every night, she came home to an apartment that never felt warm. One of those units where the lights flicker when the heat kicks on, and the fridge hums like it's afraid to die. Her mother, once full of fire, now slept more than she spoke, and the doctor bills on the kitchen counter grew heavier every week. She stared at them sometimes like they were written in another language, one she never got to learn. There was a night her reflection caught her off guard. Standing in the mirror, holding the mop like a weapon, she suddenly saw a stranger. Someone older, harder, someone she swore she'd never become. That was the night she almost left. Walked to the door, keys in hand, but stopped. Because her mother stirred in her sleep and whispered her name. Just her name. That was enough. He didn't know her name yet, but he knew her choices. They echoed his own. Long before the money and glass towers, he was just a boy cleaning cars with his father. Until the accident. Until the lawsuit. Until he became the brand. The headline. The man who had everything and felt nothing. Except now. Now he felt something. And it terrified him. The coin, his coin, still sat in her coat. And tonight she would take it out again. Not because it belonged to her. because it made her feel like she belonged somewhere, somehow. It was the first thing in weeks that felt like it had a story. Like it had weight. What neither of them knew yet was how that one object, that cold little circle of metal, would connect two lives heading in opposite directions. And maybe that's how the deepest conflicts begin, not with hate or lies or betrayal, but with two broken people seeing themselves in each other and not knowing what to do with the truth. Because the truth is, sometimes the person you were taught to avoid is the one holding the map back to yourself. And sometimes the hardest part isn't saving someone else. It's letting yourself be seen. The elevator stalled between floors. She didn't scream, just let out a quiet breath, one hand pressed to the cold metal wall. It was almost funny. The one night she needed everything to go smoothly, the building turned against her. Her mother's condition had worsened. The nurse left early, and she hadn't eaten since morning. Now the lights above flickered like they couldn't make up their mind, stay or go. She slid down to the floor, hugging her knees. Somewhere in the folds of her coat, the coin shifted, pressing into her ribs. That small, steady weight again, like it was reminding her to hold on. She closed her eyes and whispered to no one, "I'm trying. I really am." Upstairs, he watched the surveillance feed. Frozen. He'd seen the moment it happened. The way she stood so still when the elevator jolted, like someone who'd learned how to absorb disappointment without flinching. It broke something open in him. Not pity, recognition. He'd once sat in a luxury suite in Tokyo, lights glittering around him, and felt just as trapped. He had a decision to make. The board meeting was waiting. The contract would go through without him, but his presence meant headlines. It meant power. But this woman stuck between floors, hugging herself like she was the only person left in the world. This mattered more. He reached for his phone, then stopped. "What are you doing?" his old self would ask. The one who built walls so high no one could touch him. But another voice, softer, said, "What if this is the moment everything changes?" Down below, she spoke aloud. To the walls. To herself. Maybe to whatever ghost she carried. "You ever feel like you've done everything right and life still punishes you for breathing?" The elevator didn't answer. She touched the coin through her coat pocket. "I don't know whose this is," she murmured, "but I hope it meant something to you. Because it's meant something to me." He heard that too. Not through the feed. Not in words. In the way her shoulders trembled. In the silence that followed. A storm had started again outside. Lightning traced its fingers across the skyline. The building shivered with thunder. It felt like the city itself was holding its breath. He moved. Took the stairs two at a time without thinking. Past the boardroom, past the security desk, straight to the elevator control room. His fingerprints still opened doors no one else could. He overrode the system. Forced the car down. Every second felt like an hour. When the doors finally slid open, she didn't see him at first. She stood slowly, rubbing her arms, blinking at the light. Then their eyes met. Not dramatic. Just still. Like two people seeing the end of a long road and realizing they've been walking toward the same place all along. But neither spoke. Not yet. Because when pain recognizes pain, it doesn't need words. It just listens. And in that pause, the whole world waited. She stepped out of the elevator, still unsure if the man standing there was real or some strange extension of the storm. He didn't say his name. Didn't offer a reason. Just stood there, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes darker than she remembered from the framed portrait behind the front desk, the one with the smiling caption, "Founder. Visionary. Survivor." "You dropped something," she said quietly and reached into her coat. She placed the coin in his hand without fanfare, and for a second, time folded. The weight of it seemed heavier now. Not just metal. Not just memory. It was a thread pulling the past straight into the present, wrapping around them both. He stared at it, thumb tracing the lion's head like it might come alive. He didn't thank her. He couldn't. Not yet. The silence cracked first. I didn't mean to watch you, he said. At first. She tilted her head, lips parting to speak, then closed them again. What could she say? That it scared her? That it comforted her? That a part of her had known? The rain pressed harder against the glass. A police siren howled far off, swallowed by distance. Inside, the building felt too still. Then came the twist. A voice behind them. Crisp. Cold. Female. You shouldn't be here, Michael. They turned. A woman in a navy coat, heels clicking on marble. She was holding a folder, and she was holding it like a weapon. She was from the board. Or legal. Maybe both. And she wasn't just here for him. She glanced at the mop bucket still tucked behind the security desk. She's not cleared to be in this section after hours. Especially not alone. This could be... I overrode it, he said. Flat. Final. But her smile didn't flinch. That's not how this works anymore. Not since the investigation. The air changed. That word, investigation, landed like glass shattering on tile. The woman turned to her. You don't know, do you? She didn't answer. Just stood there, stomach twisting, hands curled into fists at her sides. Your mystery man here, the woman continued. He's been under review for surveillance misuse. Multiple complaints. Internal ethics flagged his badge 2 weeks ago. You're not the only one he's been watching. The words hit harder than she expected. He stepped forward. It wasn't like that. But something inside her slipped. She looked at the coin still in his hand. All this time, she'd imagined it meant something good. A sign. A gift. But maybe it was just another mistake. A thing dropped by accident that she had turned into something sacred. How many times had she done that? Given too much meaning to people who gave her none in return? I thought I saw myself in you, she said, voice low. He opened his mouth, but she stopped him. No. Please. Don't fix it. There it was, emotional no return. The moment where you realize even the smallest hope can turn sharp. And just before she walked past him, she whispered the same words she'd said to herself in that broken elevator. I'm trying. I really am. But this time she wasn't talking to the walls. It was 2:07 a.m. again. But this time she wasn't mopping. She stood in the same lobby where it all began, staring at the floor that still gleamed beneath the soft hum of overhead lights. No movement. No cleaning. Just her still, breathless, as if standing at the edge of a life she was about to walk away from. The mop bucket sat untouched behind her. The faded cartoon cat now almost completely worn away. He came down the stairs. No elevator. No audience. Just footsteps that echoed louder than they should have in the silence between them. He held out the coin, not like a gift, not like an apology. Like a truth. I found out where it came from, he said, voice raw. It wasn't mine. It belonged to the janitor before you. He worked here for 20 years. Left it behind in the vents when he passed. I used to carry it thinking it was my brother's. But it never was. I made it mean something it didn't. She took it slowly, turned it over in her hand. Felt different now. Still heavy but honest. No longer someone else's story. No longer a mistake. Just a simple object with a past that had passed through too many hands looking for something to hold on to. I think we both did that, she said softly. Made meaning out of things that weren't ours to carry. He nodded. His eyes looked clearer now, less like a man trying to save something, more like someone ready to let go. I pulled out of the deal, he said. Let the board take what they wanted. I'm not staying here. This place, it's just walls. She looked at him, really looked. For the first time, she didn't see power or scandal. She saw a man without armor. And she didn't move toward him. Didn't reach for his hand. Instead, she stepped past him, toward the door. He turned. Where will you go? She smiled, and it was the first time her face looked like it belonged to her again. somewhere with music. The automatic doors opened. She paused just before leaving, placing the coin gently on the receptionist's desk, letting it go. "You ever feel like you've done everything right?" she said, echoing her own words, and then finally realized the only thing left to do is start over? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Outside, the rain had stopped. The world smelled like clean pavement and new chances. As she walked into the night, the camera above blinked once, then shorted out for good. Back in the lobby, the coin caught the soft light, still for the first time in years. And maybe that's the thing we forget sometimes: the real rebirth doesn't come from being found. It comes from knowing when to leave. Weeks passed. The building didn't change much. Floors were still polished. The receptionist still buzzed people in without looking up. But something unseen had shifted, like the air had been opened just a crack and a different kind of light had gotten in. She never came back. The janitor's schedule had a new name on it now, scribbled in black pen over her own. No one questioned it. People like her never leave with headlines. Just a quiet absence, like a chair that no longer creaks when you sit down. But her coin stayed, tucked inside a small glass box on the front desk beside the forgotten umbrella bin. No plaque, no story, just the object sitting there, heavy and still. Some people picked it up. Most didn't notice, but those who did often held it a second longer than they meant to, as if something inside it whispered, "You've been seen before." Michael didn't leave the city. Not yet. Instead, he went quiet. The board took their piece and he let them. Sold off his shares. Walked away from a skyline he once thought he had to own. Most people called it a fall. A few called it redemption. But the truth sat somewhere in the middle. One afternoon, he stood outside a ballet school 2 neighborhoods over. The windows were steamed from the inside, and laughter spilled through a crack in the door. He watched a girl, young, maybe 9 or 10, limp slightly as she spun, determination blooming in every step. She didn't stop. Not once. A ribbon trailed from her braid, pale pink, catching the late sun like a soft flag of defiance. He didn't go inside, just stood there watching. Somewhere not far, a woman unpacked her last box in a quiet studio apartment above a music store. She placed a small photo of her mother on the windowsill. No frame, just curled edges and soft smiles. The last doctor bill had been paid. Not easily, but paid. She taught dance again, part-time. Enough. The rhythm of small feet on polished floors became her new heartbeat. It wasn't flashy, but it was hers. And in the late hours, when the city was too loud or too quiet, she'd remember his face. Not as a man who saved her or ruined her or even followed her. Just someone who stood still long enough to see her when she'd forgotten how. Some stories don't end in love. They end in letting go, in knowing when not to go back. One evening, a little girl in her class picked up a coin she'd found in the hallway. Worn edges, a lion's head, faint but fierce. "Is it lucky?" the girl asked, small fingers holding it up. She smiled. "No," she said, "but it's honest." The girl slipped it into her sock. "Then I'll keep it." Outside, the rain began again. Not hard, not soft, just enough to remind the city it was alive. And somewhere between an old high-rise and a new studio, 2 people who once stood across from each other in silence now walked different streets. Unburdened. Awake. Sometimes the quietest goodbyes are the ones that stay the longest. And maybe the people we never quite reach are the ones who change us the most.